Welcome on in, Eagles fans, to episode 16 of our Eagles podcast, the No-Huddle Show, right here on NJ.com. With me, I'm Joe Giglio. We have Elliott Shore-Parks. We have Mark Eckel. We're here with you every week. Find us on iTunes and Stitcher. We'll get to all that kind of stuff later on. Right now, though, we have to get right into what happened yesterday. Lincoln Financial Field. The Eagles coming off what was their biggest win of the season in Dallas last Sunday night. All the talk all week long was this a turning point? Here they go. The schedule's setting up for them. They go out there with a big lead in the first quarter, and about 3 hours later, it's the total opposite, a 20-19 loss for the Eagles at home to the Dolphins. Elliott, we'll start with you here. Just take me through what you were thinking during that game, as every Eagles fan had all the roller coaster of emotions. Take me through your thought process when they're up early in that first quarter. They finally have a big first quarter, and then the way the whole thing played out.
I remember sitting in the press box next to Mark and just being like, man, this is a bad Dolphins team. The Eagles went up 16-3. The Dolphins looked a mess. They had that horrible play on the kickoff where the guy took it out to the 1 yard line and slipped. And we just remember sitting there and being like, hey, they're gonna beat the Dolphins, and they have the Bucks. They're coming off that big win off the Cowboys. Then they have the Lions, and maybe things are really finally starting to come together. And then it just all kind of fell apart. And I think Lane Johnson put it best after the game when he said, normally, and I agree with them, over these past 2 years with Chip, when the Eagles jump on a team early, they very rarely give up. A lot of times you see the Eagles go up early, and then, they end up winning by like 30 points or 25 points. So it was surprising yesterday to see that happen. And the thing I keep thinking is if we were all so sure the Dolphins are a bad team, what does that make the Eagles now? If they're going to blow that game to the Dolphins at home to an interim head coach, when you're up 16-3, you only scored 3 points the rest of the way. Now you've played 9 games, you've lost 5 of them. Is it time after yesterday just to say this is not a good Eagles team? And there's no more they're playing bad. There's no more, as they turn things around, give them more time to turn things around. They do this well. None of that. Is it just time to say flat out, this is not a good football team?
It might be. They have a lot. This is a big sample now. This isn't a couple weeks of blown leads, not a couple weeks of just up and down play. This is, to me, what the Eagles are, whether it's bad or mediocre or poorly coached. They are what they are. Mark, take me through your thinking and then give me your thoughts on that. Is this what the Eagles are?
The Eagles lost. I left when it was 16. I had an emergency I had to attend to out of town. I left. It was 16. I thought they won like 35-6 or something. No? That didn't happen?
No, Bradford was in the game, yeah.
Damn, okay. No, seriously, I was stunned. We're all wrong in this business from time to time. We all think things are going to happen, and, it happens. Hopefully, to be good, you're right more than you're wrong. I've never been more wrong ever in 30 years of covering this team. This game... And it played out like I thought for the first quarter and a half. I think the Dolphins were as bad as I thought they would be. Elliott brought up the point, the guy on the one, that was the dumbest play I've ever seen. The safety, it's 16-3. The Eagles are driving to make it 22-3 or 23, whatever it would have been, 23-3. First and 10 at the 12. It's going to be a blowout. Like Elliott said, we're talking about, all right, so what are we going to write about? That's hopefully maybe we'll do something. Got to do something on Brent Selleck having the game of his life. We'll do something, and then that draw to me that turned everything around. They should have got a touchdown. When you're first and 10 at the 12, you're supposed to get a touchdown. Bradford took a bad sack on first down. Josh Huff dropped a catchable ball. It was kind of a little low, but could have been caught. Third down, they complete a little 5-yard dump. And then they missed a bad snap, missed a field goal, and nothing went right again. Nothing. From that time on, it went from putting the game away to nothing going right. And one play shouldn't have that kind of an impact if you are a good team. And this is not, am I ready to say this is a bad team? I'm close. It's certainly not a good team. We cannot call this a good team. They played 9 games, and if I had to grade every game, the only game I would give a good grade to is the win over the Giants. And that just might be that for some reason, they just always play well against the Giants.
It might be.
And the quarterback play in that game was not very good. They haven't really – the team. Right, but I guess what I was saying was, to your point, they haven't really put together a complete game at all this season, and it's
No,
been 9 games. So I agree with you. I mean, I think I was out a few nights ago, and someone asked me if I had to describe this team in 3 words, what would I say? And I think, like you were saying, I don't know if I'm ready to call them a bad team. They're definitely not a good team. I think what I said was they're inconsistent but talented, and I think that showed perfectly yesterday. I mean, they dominate to start. Bradford looks good. He's out on the run hitting people. The defense is playing great. And then all of a sudden, it just completely falls apart. And to me, that is the mark of a bad team. Just inconsistency.
They're very inconsistent. And the only thing that's consistent about the Eagles, it feels like, is they invent ways to lose games. I mean, so many of the games they've lost this year, we go back afterwards and we pick out a player or two. Mark, you were talking about the turning point there. I mean, but yesterday, that Dolphins team, like, I think everyone was saying what you guys were saying in the press box. They stink. They had 2 blowout losses in a row. They came in without Cameron Wake. They're banged up in different places. And the Eagles take a big lead. They outgain them by 147 yards, and they blow the game. I mean, it took a big effort for the Eagles to lose that game. 7 penalties were involved. Before we get to the quarterback situation, now the injury and the uncertainty around Sam Bradford, the one question I wanted to kind of start with here, because I think it encompasses everything for both of you, are the Eagles a poorly coached team? Think about all the errors they have mentally, physically, what happens during these games. Elliot, I mean, we said before the year, and I think we all still think Chip Kelly is a bright guy and a good football coach, but this team right now, are they a poorly coached team?
That is a very good question, because if you asked me that a different way, if you said, is Chip Kelly a good head coach? I would say absolutely. I think there's no doubt about that. I think he's one of the better offensive minds in the game. These are things I believe. That being said, if you look at the first 9 games and you look at how this team's losing and you look at the way the offense looks, there isn't really much proof on the field that this is a well-coached team. And there isn't much proof that Chip is a good offensive mind this year. So do I think they're a poorly coached team? I don't know, because I think Chip's a good head coach. But that being said, they have all the marks of a poorly coached team. They lose with dumb penalties. Yesterday you had a touchdown negated because Riley Cooper wasn't lined up on the line of scrimmage. That's the second time this year that happened. I mean, these are like simple things the team's doing that they play like a team that's, like you put it, that's not well coached. I mean, they lost yesterday to an interim head coach, and they lost. Like the Dolphins were supposed to be the team falling apart. The Dolphins were supposed to be the team that weren't well coached, that are looking for their next coach. The Eagles are paying their coach $7.5 million a year, and this is what they got yesterday out of that. So I think this loss absolutely falls on Chip Kelly. I think they didn't look prepared, and I think, I'm not on the bandwagon of Chip has to go, Chip's a problem, Chip can't win in the NFL. I don't believe any of that. I think Chip's going to be a very successful head coach. But this year, I think it's fair to say, now when you look at the whole picture of the 9 games, maybe they have not been a well-coached team.
Mark, how about you on that? I mean, you've been around a lot of coaches. You've seen You've seen a lot of teams that are well coached and not. Where do you fall on this?
I disagree totally that they're not well coached. I don't blame. I know people want to blame Chip for this, that. He didn't tell Riley Cooper to not line up right. He didn't tell John Dornbos to make a bad snap and Kayla Sturgis to miss a field goal. He didn't tell Mark Sanchez not to throw the ball to a wide open Brent Selleck and try to force it to Miles Austin. No, he designed the play that had Brent Selleck wide open. He designed a play that would have been a touchdown if Riley Cooper didn't line up, in the right spot. So, I mean, I won't say this team's poorly coached. This team has and I might blame Chip Kelly, the general manager who constructed this team. This is a team with a very low football IQ. I mean, we're serious, and maybe just a low IQ in general. Who are the smart guys on this team? Who are the guys that do smart things? I think DeMarco Murray is. Who constructed it? Chip Kelly. Yeah, you want to blame? Yeah. I want to say they're poorly constructed and blame him and Ed Manowitz for not putting together a smart team. I will go right along with that, but I don't think they're poorly coached. I don't like you said. They do dumb things. He's not coaching them to do. I mean, how can you coach a guy to? I mean, Mark Sanchez knows. I mean, he's been in the league how many years? He shouldn't throw that ball there. Don't throw that. Either if you don't see Selleck open, then just throw it away and go in, and now it's third down and do something. I mean, I don't know. So sometimes I think we absolve the players from mistakes and want to blame the coach for whatever reason. I think this one is on the players. I mean,
I understand that, Mark, but then there's plays like when Murray gets hit in the back of the head with the football and Miles Austin's not looking when the ball is coming, isn't that preparation during the week and practicing these plays? I mean, it almost feels like they're drawing it up in the huddle and then go, or no huddle, but drawing it up on the sideline.
No, I mean, when a new quarterback comes in a game, there's going to be some miscommunication. That just happens. Pick a team. When the backup comes in, you're not used to that guy. There's going to be some mistakes. But, I mean, Sanchez did move the ball. They moved the ball.
He moved the ball better than Bradford did. Yeah, he did. They averaged more yards per drive with Sanchez in the game than they did Bradford. But what I wanted to say to what I wanted to say to what Eccles' point was, I agree with you that the players, in any NFL game, the players a lot of times have way more say on the outcome than the coach does. And you're right, that was a good play designed by Chip. But I'm starting to wonder if this season, I think he's designing good plays, but I mean, you can say for any head coach that ends up getting fired, if he had better players, he would have done a better job. Chip brought these guys in, number one. But number two,
I'll give you. I'm ripping that.
Cooper lining up wrong. You're right. He didn't tell Cooper to line up wrong, but Cooper should. I mean, it's Chip's job to coach Cooper to the point where he doesn't make those type of mistakes. That's my point. These are silly mental mistakes they're making.
10 guys knew what to do on that play. Cooper didn't. So 10 guys were coached properly. Cooper's a mental midget. Right? Let's be honest.
A mental midget with a giant cap number, which is just ridiculous.
Do you think Chip has done a good job this year?
As a coach?
Do you think Chip's done a good job this year? As a coach.
I think he's been okay. Not bad, not great. I mean, I see the plays. I see guys open all the time, and they're not getting the ball to the right guys. I see mistakes being made. I mean, Jason Kelce, your Pro Bowl center, who everyone loves and adores, and Jason Kelce, he stinks this year. He's been awful.
He's been awful.
That's Chip Kelly's fault. That's not even Chip Kelly's guy. He didn't bring him in. I mean, what's the use there?
But all right, so maybe this will probably transition to the quarterback talk. But to me, though, it's hard to separate Chip the coach from Chip the GM because he brought these guys in. I mean, you know what I mean?
Rip him as a GM, sure. He didn't bring Kelce in. Or Cooper.
He didn't bring Kelce in, but he did bring Bradford in. Yeah. And
Bradford played pretty
that's been to me. So all right. So as a larger picture, when you talk about who like a lot of fans will say, and a lot of other media members will say, Chip can't win in the NFL. Look at this year. His offense doesn't work. They're not scoring points, blah, blah. But Chip's offense has been really good the previous 2 seasons. This year, he's got Bradford as his quarterback, and the team's struggling. So to me, when and this is more to Mark's point, when you talk about defending Chip, I agree. I think Chip is a very good head coach. I think ultimately the team's going to be fine in the long run if Chip remains their head coach. But this year, I think the major problems you're seeing is they're getting bad quarterback play. And it's hard to run you can be the best coach in the world. If you got Ryan Leaf as your quarterback, it doesn't matter. You're not going to last. So this year they look like a poorly coached.
Bradford played well yesterday.
He played well for the first quarter.
He was 19 for 25 with 200 with 4 drops.
He played well. Right.
With 4 drops.
Right. No, I'm saying when you look at the overall 9 games of the season, would you agree they've gotten bad quarterback play?
It's gotten better.
Average at best.
It's gotten better. I think it's gotten better.
It's gotten better, right. Over the past 3 quarters, it got better. He was good in the second half against Dallas, and then he was good. All right, so 4 quarters. He was good for the first half against Miami. But my point is, like Joe said, is this a poorly coached football team? I think maybe yesterday you can point, to some mental mistakes. But I agree with Mark that overall this team is 4-5, not because of Chip Kelly, the coach. They're 4-5 because of the players, and the quarterback's a big part of that.
He's a very big part of it. Both of them are now. And we'll get to all the other positions here, including the wide receiving core and all the mess they have everywhere else in this team. But let's get to the quarterback situation now. So Sanchez had to come in that game because Sam Bradford was injured, had to come off the field, took x-rays on his shoulder. As the timing of this podcast is right now, we're waiting to hear what this is going to be. But he had to have x-rays on his shoulder. He's not doing great there. And he's in concussion protocol right now. So next week, the week after, it's all up in the air right now for Sam Bradford. Sanchez comes in. They move the ball, like you said, Elliot. Actually, our yards per drive and all that, better than when Bradford was out there. But ultimately, Sanchez throws that pick at the end. But Chip Kelly did say something interesting on Monday morning on sports radio WIP in Philadelphia, saying that Bradford's the quarterback. When he's healthy, he's the guy. It really doesn't matter what Sanchez does now over the next week or so. But give me your thoughts when Sanchez came in that game. Elliot, I know all year long you've been kind of talking about the quarterback situation and Sanchez and how there's not much difference between these two guys. And I found it ironic that it was a red zone interception by Sanchez that ultimately was their undoing, because Bradford leads the league in that.
Yeah, I mean, Sanchez was exactly what I've always said he would be. I thought he moved the ball better, and he did. I mean, in the limited drives he had, the Eagles averaged more yards per drive yesterday than they did under Bradford. As Mark pointed out in the press box yesterday, which I think is true, just to the naked eye, just watching it, I thought the offense moved faster. They looked like they were just, the offense was moving better. After the game, some of his teammates, Lane Johnson said, Sanchez emphasizes pace more than Bradford does, so I do think they will move fast with Sanchez. That being said, Sanchez threw that interception, and this is what you're going to get out of Sanchez. And my point was never that Sanchez is like way better than Bradford, or that he's a Pro Bowl player and Bradford isn't. My point was they're probably the same guy. Sanchez might be a little better. He's had a better career. He costs way less, and so my point was always, why aren't you better with Sanchez in there than Bradford? And I think you saw that yesterday. I mean, this is what you're going to get under Sanchez. They're going to move the ball. They're going to score points. He's going to have turnovers. But with Bradford, he was turning the ball over this year. So in the long run,
early.
Well, but regardless, over 9 games, he's got 10 interceptions. So in last year, in 9 games, Sanchez had 11 interceptions. And I'm sure you could point to stretches last season when he didn't have, he went a few games without turning the ball over. But ultimately, we don't know how long Bradford's going to be out. But I think if Bradford misses, they have 2 games in the next 11 days. If Bradford misses both of them, I think they'll get just as good quarterback play, if not maybe slightly better.
Mark, your thoughts on that? I mean, I know that the quarterback situation now has become a big question now with what happened to Bradford. And it looked worse than it was. I mean, when it first happened and he walked off the field holding his left arm the way he did, the first thing I thought of was, there goes his collarbone or the shoulder. He's going to be out a long time. Luckily, as of now, it seems like they avoided that.
Absolutely, and I agree. I when he went down, Elliot and I both said, we weren't alone, saying, this looks like Nick Foles last year, broken collarbone, almost exactly 1 week later. I mean, it's amazing the timing of it. Sanchez does look more comfortable in this offense than Bradford is. I don't think there's any question about that. He's also been in it a lot. He's been in it a whole year long. That's something I think that plays a part in it. Sanchez, I mean, everything was going so nice for him until he throws that pick. And isn't that the story of his career? Jets fans know better than we do. I mean, it's a shame. I mean, if Mark Sanchez could get one mulligan a game, he would be a Pro Bowl quarterback. He would be right there with the best, because if he can just get one, okay, I want that pass back that Miles, give me that one back. Okay, get it back and do it again. He would throw it to Selleck to be a touchdown. The Eagles would win. Everybody would be celebrating. I mean, that's the problem, though. He always has that one, and you're waiting for it. You know it's going to happen. It's just when, and can they overcome it? And so that's why. And let's be honest, I don't think either one of these guys is the guy that's going to take you, to a Super Bowl victory. I mean, they're both guys. They're both better than a lot of the slop that's playing in the league right now. I mean, if Dallas had Mark Sanchez as their backup, they wouldn't have gone 0-7, right? He's better than Whedon and Castle, right? I mean, if Mark Sanchez is on the Cowboys, if he would have signed with the Cowboys last year when he was a free agent to be Romo's backup, Dallas is still in the race. Dallas is probably right in the mix, but they're probably 4-5 or 5-4, whatever, right? So, yeah, you can win games with Mark Sanchez. There's no doubt in my mind that he can win. I've seen him win games. I mean, and even though Chip said today, Sam's my guy when he's healthy. Let's see what happens. I don't think there's any way Bradford plays Sunday against Tampa Bay. Do you guys?
I don't think so, but Chip keeps not mentioning his shoulder, so I don't think he's going to play.
Even the concussion is going to keep him out, I think. I mean,
yeah.
So he's not going to play this week. I'll be stunned.
And it's going to be tough to play against Detroit in 4 days.
Right. If you're not ready Sunday, how are you ready the next Thursday?
Exactly.
That seems like
That's
a lot.
My point. Right. So my point is, I think Sanchez will get at least 2 starts. And I'd say he really plays well. And they win both games. And now they're 6-5. And they're in first place. Because the Giants lose to whoever they play coming off their bye. So you're in first place, Sanchez is 2-0 and has looked good. He hasn't thrown any interceptions, or maybe just one. Do you really go back to Bradford? That's where
it's going to become a question mark.
I can hear the excuses already. So Sanchez plays well for 2 games, and Bradford comes back. He doesn't play well, and everyone goes, "Oh, he's coming off an injury." Blah, blah, blah. Like,
they play in New England that game, right? That's the New England game, right?
Yeah. I mean, no matter who they put, they should just put Thad Lewis out there for that game, because they're not winning that game no matter what. They should just throw Thad Lewis to the Wolves up there in New England. That's going to be ugly.
But I mean, Chip has done it before. I mean, we've seen this before. At least I have. I mean, forget that old adage about you don't lose your job to injury. Tell that to Kevin Cobb. Tell that to Nick Foles. I mean, to Mike Vick.
Tell that to Michael Vick, yeah. Tell that to every quarterback Chip's ever had.
Well, Chip didn't do the Kevin Cobb thing. That was Andy Reid. Kevin Cobb was the new Donovan. That's why they traded Donovan. They gave him a new deal. He's the guy. He gets knocked out by Clay Matthews in game 1 of the season. Mike Vick comes in, his lights out. Cobb never got his job back. You know,
we're really going to find out too. Like
Mike Vick, and again, Mike Vick wins the job in training camp. Is Chip Kelly's first quarterback with the Eagles? Gets hurt. Nick Foles comes in, plays lights out. Mike Vick doesn't get his job back. So there's precedent here, guys. If Sanchez plays well and they win, I don't know if you can take him out. I don't know. I don't think you can.
And that's why we're really going to find out a lot. We'll just continue going with the assumption that Sanchez has 2 starts and plays well. We're really going to find out a lot about just how committed Chip is, because I mean, even before the game even started yesterday, while we're sitting in the media room, kind of just talking, saying what's Chip going to do? Bradford's going to be a free agent. Like, how bad does Chip really want Bradford? Did he want Mariota, or did he just take Bradford as a potential trade chip? Like, we're going to really find out now, because if Sanchez plays well, the Eagles win. They're 6-5. I mean, this could be an easy decision. Sanchez could play bad. They could be 4-7,
right.
and
then it don't matter.
But if there's a decision to be made, it's going to be very interesting, because Bradford is a free agent this offseason, right? So you're basically, I mean, if Chip goes back to Bradford, that will tell me everything I need to know about. Chip is really, really hoping Bradford's his guy, because, like as Mark said, he went to Foles when Vic was hurt. He stuck with Foles. Last season he stuck with Sanchez, Foles never came back. But I mean, I think he probably would have stuck with Sanchez. But regardless, we're going to find out a lot about just how committed Chip is to Bradford when he's healthy enough to play.
We are, and unfortunately for Sanchez or for Bradford, and mostly unfortunately for Kelly, whatever quarterback's out there has to play with this receiving core that he's assembled, which we've talked about a lot this year. Fans have complained a lot this year. I mean, yesterday, we're doing this podcast on a Monday. Sunday afternoon was just the Panther game was bad because of all the drops, but yesterday was unbelievable. Miles Austin looked like he was on a different planet. I didn't think he competed for the ball that Sanchez threw the pick on in the end zone. He had a couple other, issues out there. And Riley Cooper.
How about the drop? How about the drop down the sideline? It would have been, if not a touchdown, it would have got him down inside the 10.
Couldn't get his feet in for the touchdown. That would have.
Another one. Stop
killer.
it.
It's a killer. And then the last drive, he just didn't turn around for the football. You add that to Riley Cooper, who hasn't had a catch in almost a month now. I mean,
hasn't been targeted in 3 weeks.
That is an unbelievable statistic there. I mean, these are these are 2 of your 4 receivers, and they don't do anything. Mark, when you look at this receiving core, you've seen a lot of them over the years. I mean, it's unbelievable how inept they are in most moments of these games.
Yeah, and again, I didn't see this coming. I don't think any of us. I mean, I had Mike Quick, who I think is the greatest receiver in Eagles history. You can argue Harold Carmichael, Ty McDonald, but I saw Quick play. He was great, one of the great. I mean, if he's not the greatest, he's in the top 3. And this is a guy, so he knows wide receivers, right? I mean, I'm not talking to somebody that never just another writer. I'm talking to a great receiver who told me before the season he thought this was the best receiving group he's ever seen with the Eagles, ever. He said, maybe not the 2-star, but the depth of it. He thought Aguilar was going to be a star. He thought Matthews was going to come in and really have a big year. He thought Josh Huff had all the talent in the world and was finally picking it up and was going to have a great year. And then he says, and then you got Cooper and Austin, 2 veterans that have been, that know the game as your 4 and 5. This is a great group. This group, and I believed him. Why wouldn't I believe him? And I'm watching it myself again. Training camp is what it is, but they didn't. They didn't show any signs of being this bad in training camp. They looked like, okay, this is pretty good. This could be special. And that's why I thought, you know what? Sam Bradford, he is what he is. Let's be honest. I've been saying it all along. Sam Bradford is Sam Bradford. He's not going to wake up and become Joe Montana, or he's not going to wake up and become Bobby Hoying either. He is what he is. But I thought with a good receiving group around them and two or three good running backs behind him, he's going to look better than he really is because of all this talent. Oh my God, the receivers have made Sam Bradford worse than he is, and now Sanchez too, for that matter. And I don't understand. I don't know what happened there. If you want to blame coaching, maybe the wide receiver coach isn't the greatest in the world.
Yeah. I mean, and to me, it's amazing. Like, we're 9 games into the season, and Miles Austin is playing a significant role in this team.
Yeah,
I mean, when me and Mark were like talking about a 53-man roster, we said, yeah, they'll keep Austin, but he's like more like a player coach. And now he's like they're targeting him in key points of the game. I mean, I get Nelson Aguilar has missed the last 3 games, but why in the world would Miles Austin ever play more snaps than Nelson Aguilar? I mean, this guy's a first-round pick. So yeah, he's a rookie. Miles Austin's a veteran, but Aguilar, and me and Mark both agreed with this. I mean, when they picked Aguilar, and the reality they weren't getting Mariota had finally sunk in. When they picked Aguilar, I thought that was maybe like one of the best picks they could have made outside of Mariota, and I thought he would have a big instant impact.
I thought he'd be rookie of the year.
Yes, and he's been invisible, and I mean, obviously a portion, obviously a large part of that. Yeah, well, he's been hurt, but even when he's been healthy, he hasn't really had any big plays at all this year. But he had the one long catch. Yeah, he had the one long catch. But Miles Austin has a long catch too. But regardless, Miles Austin should not be on the field. Is my ultimate point. I think we can all agree on that. Especially, and look, that Sanchez interception, he deserves total blame for that. If I'm going to blame Bradford for all the interceptions this year, it's only fair to blame Sanchez for that one. But I do agree with you, Joe, that his effort on that play was very questionable. And then on an incompletion on the final drive, the ball's in front of him, but he doesn't dive. He just kind of like gives up. The effort was not great from him yesterday. I wouldn't be surprised if when the coaches watch that, maybe his snap count goes down next week. But look, if you're gonna go into this season,
cut him. Send a message.
I agree, because I would cut him as well. But if you go into this season with the core of Matthews, Huff, and Aguilar, that's the 3 you really thought were going to be your guys.
And Cooper.
All of them have probably underperformed this year in one way or another. But you just gotta ride with them at this point. Don't have the season come down to the trio of Cooper, Austin, and Bradford. I mean, does anybody think that trio is going to do anything? So just ride with those three receivers and see what happens.
Now, I don't think they're going to do anything either. I don't think any of us do. And yet the two of them, Austin and Cooper, played nearly 100 snaps yesterday. Meanwhile, I mean, you barely see Darren Sproles on the field. He refuses to put Matthews outside. I mean, I just feel like they could make adjustments to get those guys off the field and get better, younger, or just better playmakers out there. It almost feels like every time I look up at the screen, it's Austin and Cooper on the field, and then 1 or 2 of the other guys, like you're talking about, Elliot, that probably should get more of an opportunity. Or I don't understand it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes no sense. That's why you don't understand it. Well,
I think they got to get Ajira Tutu on the field more. He's the one guy that hasn't done anything wrong yet. So let's give him a shot.
Let's give him a chance. The one thing I wanted to touch on here, because last week we watched that game against the Cowboys. We gave Dennis Kelly credit last week at right tackle. We gave Lane Johnson credit for filling in for Jason Peters, and the running game had really 4 weeks in a row really revved up over 150 yards every time. The Dolphins, we talked about this last week, coming in, couldn't stop anyone on the ground. And this really, we thought, all 3 of us, and I think everyone, this was set up for the Eagles' offensive line to keep playing well and the running game to keep playing well. And because of the quarterback issues and the penalties and the mistakes, that's got a little buried here. They couldn't run the football. You mentioned earlier, Mark, that Kelsey was awful, but the offensive line just in general just took a major step backwards. They couldn't block anyone yesterday, Mark.
Well, the interior. I didn't think the tackles, believe it or not, I don't think the tackles played. I didn't see a lot of pressure off the edge. What I saw was the interior. And the guy that we talked briefly about last week, and we kind of dismissed him because we thought he was kind of just cashing in, was Ndamukong Suh, who is a very good player. Hadn't been playing very well for the Miami Dolphins, but was a top of the line, one of the best players, one of the best defensive players in the game when he was with the Detroit Lions. Signed a mega free agent deal with Miami. he was getting ripped. He was being called Albert Hainsworth II, got his money, doesn't care. Well, he cared yesterday. He came to play for whatever reason. Somebody woke him up, and he played like the guy that was a Pro Bowl player for the Lions all those years. He dominated. He dominated Kelsey, Barber, anybody that got near him, he destroyed. And he's capable of doing that. He has that ability. That's why they gave him all that money that they gave him. But, he hadn't really shown it much with the Dolphins. And yesterday he did. And he was a one-man force. I mean, people want to talk about Fletcher Cox being a great player. Fletcher Cox never played the way Sue played yesterday. Sue was just a dominant. And Cox, not taking nothing away from Fletcher Cox, but, that's what a dominant defensive lineman does. And he took the Eagles out of a lot of things.
What's amazing is that they, like a lot of times this year when they haven't been able to run the ball, you look at the box sheet afterwards, and they ran it like 12 times or 18 times. I mean, you take away the quarterback runs yesterday, and they ran the ball 33 times yesterday.
So the first time they've lost when they run the ball more than 30 times.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so they committed to the run. They just couldn't do it. I mean, 33 times, for like 80 yards, or 33 times for 79 yards is what they ended up with yesterday. So
it's not good. I'm not good at math. That's not good.
It's not ideal. It's not ideal. So maybe that had something to do with, I don't know. Just, you're right. I mean, Sue was dominant. Lane Johnson said after the game that Sue's the type of player that when he wants to turn it on, he can. And unfortunately for the Eagles, he dominated yesterday.
He was great.
Are you a little tired of Lane Johnson, like, ripping other teams' players for not playing?
Well, I will say he's the one player this year that's been the most consistent on the offense. I mean, he's done good at both tackle spot, but
except for his 7 penalties in 8 games or 9 games. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
He's not going to the Pro Bowl either. Let's get that out of the way. I mean, I'm not. Lane's a nice guy. He's a good quote. He's playing fine. He's not. He's the least of their problems. But enough of this. Every week, Greg Hardy only plays when he wants. This guy only plays when he wants. Oh, it looks like some of your guys only play when they want to too, Lane. How about calling out Miles Austin? Or how about calling out Riley Cooper? How about calling out some of your guys instead of ripping Ndamukong Suh, who you'll never be as good as? Okay?
It's a good point.
You're right, Mark. I mean, it's a good point. And as we kind of look forward here, speaking of things that kind of bother me after these games, the way this team talks, I want your perspective on it, because it boggles my mind every week hearing the Eagles talk about, the fact that they're still in this thing. And
that's the crazy thing.
They are. I know it's a fact, but it's just like, how about you go out there and win some football games instead of worrying about everyone else around you failing? I mean, if Stephen Gostkowski misses that kick, 54 yards in that Giants-Pats game, that might have been the day yesterday we look at it and say, this is going to be too hard for the Eagles to come back from a 2-game deficit. But that doesn't happen. They are still in this thing. They're a half out, but do you get the sense they mean that that's really what they're thinking, or is this just what they're saying after the game? Elliot?
I think they believe it because, when you look, how could they not believe it? They're a half game out with, 7 games to go. They beat the team that's ahead of them. Not only they beat
easily.
Smoke. Right. So, what the players think is I think they're always going to think they're in it. But in terms of what I think, I absolutely think they're still in it. And I might still pick them to win the division as bad as they played. They're only a half game out and they beat them. So all they have to do is end up tied with the Giants. And then I guess we'll have to look at the right. But I don't know. Do you guys think they're going to – I think they could still win the NFC. I think they –
absolutely.
I might still be favored. Yeah.
I don't know. Well, the odds will come out today. But keep this in mind. If they beat Tampa Bay Sunday, and they're a 7-point favorite to do so. Again, I'm just throwing it out there. But if they just hold form and win this, they're tied for first. Actually, they're in first because they own the tiebreaker on the Giants. So with 6 games to go, they're in first. And the Giants' schedule is daunting. It really is. They have their bye this week. They come off. They go to Washington, where the Redskins are playing way better than I dreamed possible. They got the Jets, who are pretty good team, pretty good defense anyway. They go to Miami. Well, I don't think they're any good, but who knows? Then they got Carolina, the only good team in the NFC. Then they go to Minnesota, who's one of the above average teams in the NFC. And then they play the Eagles. There's, what's the gimme
So
on
that
that?
should be a win.
That's the easiest. The Eagles are the easiest game on the Giants' schedule, probably. The
Yeah.
Giants' schedule is tough. It really is, and they played. I didn't get a chance to see the whole game yesterday. I saw bits and pieces and highlights. They obviously played pretty well to take New England down to the wire like that, but that doesn't mean
They always
anything.
play New England well, though.
Yeah,
For what it's worth.
and in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't mean anything. If they lost, you don't get extra points for only losing by one. You don't get anything for covering. They lost the game. That was their fifth loss. It's crazy to think this because the Eagles are, like I started by saying, they're not a good team. This is not a. I want to talk to somebody that covered the Panthers last year to get their perspective on what it's like covering a team that isn't very good but can still win a division.
That's what this is right now, right?
Right. The NFC East has become the NFC South of last year, where all those teams are in it till the end, and they were under 500.
And the Panthers won a playoff game.
Yeah.
I'll throw this question out to both you guys. So, who do you think, if Bradford played the next 7 games or Sanchez played the next 7 games, who do you think they have a better chance of winning the division?
It's a great question. Now it's become one. It was kind of this weird hypothetical before because when Bradford was struggling, you thought in the back of your mind. Now we saw Sanchez. Here's the one thing I know, and I watched that game, rewatched it on DVR last night. I heard Rich Gannon talking about Sanchez's footwork, how he moves in the pocket. He did make some nice plays, scrambling around when the offensive line wasn't great. He hit Murray on that play up the sideline.
That was a great play.
It was, and Chip talked about it on WIP on Monday. I get a feeling watching it that Sanchez will move the offense better. I know Bradford was playing well, much better the last 4, 5, 6 quarters before the injury. I don't know. I get a weird feeling. My answer might be Sanchez. Mark?
I don't think it matters. I really don't. I don't think one's that much better than the other. I think they each have their strengths, each have their weaknesses. I'll say this, and I mentioned this last night or Sunday night when I was on Channel 3. Forget the next whatever many games, 7. Last game of the year at the Meadowlands, winner wins the division, loser misses the playoffs. Who would you rather have, Bradford or Sanchez? Because there I would want Sanchez. One game with all that on the line, give me a guy who's been there before. And he's been there. Sanchez has been in several from his college career on, has been in a multitude of important games and has won more than he's lost. The guy beat New England in the playoffs. He beat Tom Brady in a playoff game. Sam Bradford's never been to a playoff game. Sam Bradford never beat anything. Sam Bradford lost to Hasselback or somebody no, not even. It was Charlie Whitehurst, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was Whitehurst, yeah.
In a game that he had to win. So one game winner take all, I'd rather have Sanchez. The next 7, I don't care. It doesn't matter.
Elliot, your answer to your own question?
Oh, we know that.
I think Sanchez. I agree with Mark to a certain degree. It really probably doesn't matter, but I think if you're getting the same type of quarterback, at least with Sanchez, I think there's a chance that maybe there's like a spark or something. Who knows? Maybe they go out next week, they kill the Bucs, they score 35 points, then you beat the Lions, and you finally get things rolling. With Bradford through 8 games, it kind of looked like that spark was not coming. Even after strong play against the Cowboys with that big overtime win, a strong start to the Dolphins game, things were unraveling. You know what I mean? Like things, if Bradford stays in that game,
do they win?
I don't know if they win. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know if Bradford throws an interception, but at the same time, like you said, Joe, he has thrown a lot of key red zone interceptions this year. So I don't know. But I think over these next 7 games, I think the Eagles are slightly better off with Sanchez just because I do think there's a small chance maybe Sanchez can get things going, whereas with Bradford, I just didn't see that spark coming. I don't think with Bradford this team could win 3 games in a row. Granted, they're not going to win the next 3 because they have the Patriots, but in a larger sense, I don't think Bradford's capable of winning 3-4 games in a row, whereas Sanchez, I do think he could pull something like that off.
All right, last one for you guys, because we kind of talked about that last game of the season, which we've been talking about all year, probably deciding the NFC East. How close are each of you, and I know you probably didn't see the full game because you're at the Eagle game, same time, 1 o'clock on Sunday. How close are each of you, now that we've buried the Cowboys and they buried themselves, to putting the Redskins back in this thing? They're 4-5 now. They just got Rob Ryan fired, and they gave up 1 million yards to him. They put up 40-something points in that game. They're 4-5. They have the Giants in a couple weeks after their bye. Are the Redskins in this thing, Mark?
Yeah. I mean, if the Eagles are in it, the Redskins are in it because they're actually ahead of them right now. They're tied, and they beat them. So, I thought the Redskins were the worst team in the league when the season started. I really did. And I don't think I was alone thinking that. They looked like a mess. The RG3 thing. Cousins has played pretty damn well the last few weeks. I have to give him credit. He was tremendous yesterday. Again, New Orleans, he got a guy fired for being so good. But again, I'm looking at the Redskins schedule. That's not easy either. They're at Carolina this week, and they play the Giants. No, it's not too bad. Maybe then they have Dallas. The Redskins and Cowboys haven't played yet this year.
They have the Cowboys twice.
They have the Cowboys twice, and are the Cowboys going to care at this point? Does Romo even come back? I mean, who knows? So they could be easier. And then they play the Bears, the Bills, and they're at the Eagles. So, yeah, the Redskins, strange as it might sound, yeah, they're certainly in it. I think I don't think they'll beat Carolina in Carolina this week, so that'll put them a game back, but at least from the Giants. But I didn't think Carolina was in it last year when if you would have asked me at week 10 when Carolina was 3-7 or whatever they were, if they were going to win the South. So and they did. So who knows?
I mean,
who knows?
The thing to me, when you asked the question, the first thing to pop in my mind was, I mean, Kirk Cousins is their quarterback. Like, they're not in it, but he might be playing he might be the best quarterback in the division right now. I mean, with Roma hurt, and I mean, like, the way he's playing, at least statistically. So, and then, Mark just read off their schedule there. I mean, I think they're absolutely in it at this point. Until they falter.
Here's what's going to happen, who they played the Cowboys last game. The Redskins are going to go into that last game with a chance to make the playoffs, but Cousins is going to get hurt, and RG3 is going to ride to the rescue. What do you think?
I mean, that would be amazing.
You guys aren't buying that one?
And then Tebow will be starting for the Eagles.
I'm always looking for the good story angle.
Tebow will be starting against the Eagles for the Giants. Against the Giants. So
that's a good one no matter what happens here. All right, guys, this has been an unpredictable podcast, just like this unpredictable season. The Eagles will take on the Bucs on Sunday. We usually preview the game. I mean, I guess each of you, give me your thoughts moving forward for this week. I mean, it really feels like it's ridiculous to preview these games the way we just don't know what they're going to be week in, week out. Elliot, your thoughts with the Bucs coming up on Sunday? They're favored by 7 points, at least the opening line was, which felt ridiculous, but that's what it is right now.
I think they're going to smoke them. I think Sanchez is going to throw maybe 7, 8, 9 touchdowns. You know what I mean? Like 500-600 yards. And I think they're going to win. I honestly do think they're going to win. I do think Sanchez is going to play very well. And I think they'll probably cover.
Mark? I don't know.
Do you want to make any guarantees?
No, I'm not guaranteeing anything.
Should we review? In radio, usually you can say go to the tape. We don't have the tape, but I believe last week Mark said it was a stone-cold lock and take the Eagles in your suicide pool.
Yes, I did. Like I said, I've never been. When I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm not a little bit wrong. I thought I had a pretty good poll. We did going. I was like, a lot of people were getting games wrong with picking Eagles. Oh my God, Eagles! I was 6 and how many games did they play? 9. I was 6-2 picking the Eagles until the Miami game, and I thought that was pretty damn good for a team that, like everybody says, has been unpredictable. And then what I saw yesterday, I never in a million years thought they'd lose that game. I mean, I didn't cover, and that's for gamblers. I just thought they'd win. Yeah, I can't pick them to lose to Tampa Bay, can I? No. I think they'll beat Tampa Bay. Will they cover? I don't know, but I think they'll win by at least 1. I'm going to pick them to beat Tampa Bay.
I could just hear the confidence in the way the Eagles are going to play. It's just waned so much here.
I can't be. I was Mr. Optimist. I really was. I was the guy painting the smiley face on all the doom, saying no, they're fine. They're getting better. It was going to take time. After yesterday, I'm done. No, the smiley faces come off everything. You can't lose that game. You can't lose to a not good Miami Dolphin team who's playing and I can't stress this enough, playing their 3rd straight road game. They should have been, the Dolphins were supposed to be dead at the end of the game. And the Eagles were supposed to roll them. And it didn't happen. And there's no excuses. There's no explanation. Except that the Eagles aren't very good. So, teams that aren't very good could lose to. Hey, Tampa Bay beat Dallas in regulation Sunday. They didn't have to go overtime to beat Dallas. So if Tampa beats them, I'm not going to be surprised. No matter what this team does from here on out, I'm not going to be surprised. Other than if they beat New England, you'll have to call the medics. Get 911 ready on the phone in Foxborough, because that would be the only thing that would surprise me from here on out. If you told me they would win, that they're going to win every other game and lose to New England, I'd say, well, that's kind of hard to do, but it's not okay. Or if you told me they're going to lose every game from here on out, I'd say, you know what, they lost to Miami, you can lose to anybody.
So to sum up episode 16, the Eagles aren't very good. We have no idea what's going to happen the rest of the season, yet they're somehow still in this race. Does that sound about right?
You got it. You hit it around the head.
There it is. That was episode 16 of the No-Huddle Show. Elliot, thanks for doing this.
No problem. Talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, Joe. Thank you.
And thanks to all of you for listening to the No-Huddle Show right here on NJ.com. Make sure to follow the show on Twitter at the No-Huddle Show. Subscribe on iTunes and on Stitcher. And we'll be back next week after the Eagles and the Bucks on Sunday afternoon at Lincoln Financial Field right here on NJ.com.